Upfront and Outspoken with Bob Williams. If you love the Constitution,
man is not free unless government is limited.
If you love freedom,
as government expands, liberty contracts.
If you believe in personal responsibility, if you believe America is still the greatest nation on earth, then get ready for an experience you'll never forget. This is Upfront and Outspoken. Here's your host, Bob Williams.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
And welcome back. This is, of course, Upfront Outspoken. I'm your host, Bob Williams. Glad to have you along with me on this Wednesday, hump day. Let's take a look at your weather for today. I know everything has been so busy around here, we just haven't gotten into it. For today, patchy fog before 10 a.m., otherwise sunny, high near 79 degrees. For tonight, increasing clouds with a low around 51. And for your Thursday, a 20% chance of showers and thunderstorms before 1 p.m. Otherwise, partly sunny, high near 74 degrees. Currently in Poto, we have 53 degrees under foggy conditions. And here in Callington, right here at the studios, it is 55 under clear skies. What can I tell you? This is a great day for my weekly rant.
There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't.
And how true that is. Today, of course, this is my weekly rant. And what is going on? Once again, the First Amendment of our Constitution is under attack. And I'm going to say it that way, is under attack in the state of Pennsylvania, even though it is pertaining to prisoners, it is still under attack. Now, for those of you who do not know or have no clue what the First Amendment of the Constitution is, let me give you an update. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits the making of any law respecting an establishment of a religion, impeding the free exercise of a religion, abridging the freedom of speech, infringing on the freedom of the press, interfering with the right of peaceably assemble, or prohibiting the petitioning for a government redress of grievances. All right, did you catch what I said? Did you catch what I said? Abridging the freedom of speech and infringing on the freedom of the press. This is under a constant attack, folks. And right now in the state of Pennsylvania, even though it is pertaining to, they are trying to pass a law, and the governor has already in Pennsylvania said he will sign the law. They are impeding, they are infringing on an individual's right of free speech. Granted, if you're in prison, you do give up certain rights. The right of voting, the right to own a firearm, several other rights. You give up those rights. But even as a prisoner, do they indeed give up the right of free speech? I'm wondering what the people in Pennsylvania are thinking about this. This is your governor, folks. This is your very own governor who, from all reports, is falling very, very behind in the polls, as much as 25 points, is going to pass the most controversial law that I have seen come across any governor's desk in a long time, other than what has gone on in Wisconsin, and regarding other issues, regarding Texas, with the voting rights, but this is a issue that you need to be aware of, because if this can hold up in the state of Pennsylvania, when do you think it'll come up and affect you in your state, your community? your backyard. If we as American people give up our right of free speech, do you think I'd be behind this microphone? I wouldn't be. Do you think that as a journalist, I'd be able to have access to hold our government accountable if it wasn't for the First Amendment? I wouldn't. Yet it seems that through a midnight vigil, shall we say, Pennsylvania is doing just that. They are, in essence, forbidding free speech. Even though, and like I said, even though this is regarding prisoners who are in the correctional system, it also affects some of those who have been released from prison, who have once again served their time, may be off of parole. I don't know how it is in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to have to ask Don about this, the host of Making Sense show. But if they are off of parole, they once again are a part of society. Therefore, a vast majority of their rights are reinstated, except they can no longer own a firearm. In some areas, they cannot vote. But for the vast majority of it, they gain back many of the rights they were able to enjoy before they were incarcerated. And that includes the right of free speech, the right of peaceable assembly. Yet it is this governor, Pennsylvania, that is taking this away, or trying to take this away. Take away the First Amendment. And they are going to abridge the freedom of speech. They've already infringed on a freedom of the press in the prison system there. A journalist cannot go into the prison system with even so much as a pencil and paper to interview anyone. That is infringing on the freedom of the press, and yet you people in Pennsylvania have allowed that particular part to go through. You do not know what is going on behind the walls of your very own prisons. You do not know what is going on. And yet your governor is going to take this to the next level and abridge the freedom of speech if he does it for them. What's next? What's next? Is he going to forbid the press from coming into his conferences? Is he going to forbid the press from investigating his staff, his campaign? Is he going to infringe on the rights of the free press? Is he going to infringe on your rights under the First Amendment? He's already doing it for prisoners. You're next. You're next, Pennsylvania. It's time you stand up and say, no, Mr. Governor, you can't do this. You cannot do this. This law, this amendment, has come under fire many, many, many times. And every time, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of either the press or our right of free speech, so long that it does not incite violence. I want to make that very, very, very specific. You have the right of free speech so long as your words, your actions do not incite violence. You can say what you want to a degree. You know, if it's going to incite violence, well, then you're going to be in trouble. But to a degree. So here we have Pennsylvania trying to take away Pennsylvania's right of free speech. They've already, the Department of Corrections and the Policemen's Union up there have already infringed upon the right of the freedom of the press to investigate, speak with, record prisoners to let you know what's going on behind your very own prison walls. Do you know how many of you in Pennsylvania right now within my voice knows what is going on behind the walls of your prison? I want you to think about that a second. How many of you in Pennsylvania knows exactly what's going on behind the walls? Bet you none of you. I'll bet you $1 to notice none of you have a clue what is going on behind the walls in your prison, because the press is forbidden to come in there. The press is basically forbidden. You cannot have a camera. You cannot have a tape recorder. You cannot so much as have a pencil or paper, a pencil or pen, paper, whatever, when you interview somebody. In other words, journalists have to remember everything. The only way possible, but then even then, if it's like any other prison system around the country, they would call out. Let's say, for example, you're allowed to have telephone calls. And I'm sure Pennsylvania inmates have that ability to call out. All right, let's say, for example, someone within Pennsylvania calls out of the clear blue a newspaper to report what's going on. How much do you want to bet that within minutes that phone call will get cut? That inmate's going to go to what they call the hole, which is solitary confinement. That inmate is going to be punished because they tried to exercise their right of free speech. I don't condone the actions of somebody in prison to the point that what they did before they got there. But what I don't like is even while they're there, you have prison officials who are doing everything in their power to abridge the freedom of speech. I agree with a very, very, very tiny segment of the law. I'm going to tell you this right now. If indeed what the person says harms the victims of their crime, maybe, and I'm going to say maybe, there should be some sort of redress. But to totally wipe out free speech, and that's exactly what this governor is trying to do for any inmate, that's beyond. That is well beyond a violation of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, something that I, as a journalist, hold dear to my heart. I want to know what goes on. I want to hold our government accountable. I want to hold its representatives accountable. I want to hold every department accountable for their actions. And yet Pennsylvania has already infringed on the right of the freedom of the press within a prison system. Like I said, a journalist, if they have an interview with an inmate, the guard is going to be standing right there. Number one, the guard's going to be standing right there. The reporter cannot have anything. So the reporter is going to be sitting there across the table or on the other side of a glass window with their arms, crossed, listening to this guy and praying like hell they got a memory that won't give out on them, because they can't write anything down, they can't record it, they can't videotape it, they can't do anything. That's currently your situation in there in Pennsylvania, folks. And it's coming to a theater near you. Face it. If Pennsylvania gets away with this, you don't think for 1 minute it's going to happen in other states? Other states are going to press the same kind of legislation? The governor in Pennsylvania already said he is going to sign this law. He's going to sign this law, abridging the freedom of speech. He's already infringed upon the free press. Now he's going to silence people from voicing their issues, their concerns about what is going on within the walls of a prison. And to those who have been released, have served their time, are no longer on any sort of paper, as they say, which is parole or probation or however it works up there in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. However it is. But your governor, Pennsylvania, is doing exactly that. Your governor is doing everything within his power to stop an inmate from saying boo. In other words, whatever they say, it has to be cleared with the courts first. That's right. You heard it right. Has to be cleared by the courts first. And if the court decides that, guess what, you're infringing upon a victim's rights, then you're going to go back to jail. You know, the law may not read in that exact terminology in the last part of what I've said, but more than likely, as a convicted felon, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to throw your ass back in jail. You know, you just don't have a ghost chance in hell to beat it if a judge says that's the way it is. And this is what the state of Pennsylvania is doing. They are infringing on freedom of speech. What's next? What's next? They're going to infringe upon a peaceful demonstration where they're voicing their opinions. They're going to inhibit that. They're going to sit there and say, you can't have peaceable assembly. Well, guess what? First Amendment, you know, screw it. You know, even though we may have been one of the first colonies to approve the United States Constitution, we're going to walk all over it. We're going to stamp all over it. We're going to, you know, make this a, I don't want to say it, but it looks like it's sounding this way. It's going to be a communist state where only what the government wants you to hear is going to disseminate. I'm sorry, folks. That's not the country I grew up in. That's not the country many of you grew up in. That's not the country our veterans of World War II fought for World War I, the Spanish-American War, dating back to the Revolutionary War. That is not the country they fought and died for. They fought for a country where the First Amendment specifically states that no law respecting an establishment of religion, impeding the free exercise of religion, abridging the freedom of speech, infringing on the freedom of the press, and interfering with the right of peaceable assembly or prohibiting the petitioning for a governmental redress of grievances. This was adopted in 1791, folks, and is part of the very first 10 amendments that we refer to as the Bill of Rights. Many of us within the journalistic community have used and stood behind the freedom of the press in defending our sources. Many of us have used the right of freedom of speech in order to say exactly what we think about our government, because that is our right. Our right. But yet there are senators, there are congressmen up on the Capitol Hill in D.C. that would love to abridge it. Feinstein is one of them. She'd love to impede the freedom of the press, and she's trying to do so. We have a governor now in the state of Pennsylvania who's once again trying to infringe upon the freedom of speech, even though, as I said from the start, this is regarding prisoners. They still have that right. They still have the right of free speech. But if this is allowed to hold, if this is allowed to stand, you do not think for 1 minute it is going to be enacted in all 49 other states. Every other state is probably looking at Pennsylvania right now and saying, well, maybe this is what we need to stop our prisoners from saying what they want about the government, saying what they want about what goes on behind the walls, all that. Pennsylvania, it's time for you to wake up. Get your governor out of there. Make that 25-point spread even larger, and then repeal this law that he already said he will sign. Get him out of there. Defend your rights under the First Amendment. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're an independent. But this jackoff does not deserve even a ghost of a chance of being reelected coming November. Get him out of there. He is infringing on your rights, period. And with that, it is time for me to get on out of here. Stay tuned, because coming up here at the bottom of the hour is none other than the one, the only, Ed Till. He'll be with you all the way up until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So until tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., this is Bob Williams. Take care of yourselves.